All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back to The Grind. Hey, Lorna. Hey, Mirza. Hey, Russ. Good morning, Art. All right, y'all. So I spent pretty much good chunk of my weekend working on the indicator updates, and I am happy to say I'm pretty much done on my end. So I'm going to ship them over to Mr. Eric, get his final stamp of approval, and then we should be good to go here. So a little brief rundown. A couple of tweaks to the buy and the sell signals. I changed the scoring system to 15 points from 12 to 15. And now down here on the squeeze histogram, now you have the option to only have an arrow when we've got the A plus squeeze. So that is all coming your way. But all right, folks, so rankings all point towards a market that I think wants to go higher. S&Ps get a perfect 75 out of 75. Dow Jones is perfect, QQQ a 69, and the IWM a 67. Right, it's all pretty bullish. For the sectors, you have financials, industrials, they're perfect. Transports, XLC, XLB, big tech, gold, SMH. The Big 12, everything gets a positive score. Some things, of course, stronger than others. I think I'd rather buy the financials before I go buy real estate, but they're all looking pretty good here. And then on my watch list, TSM gets a 75, and then Nvidia, Meta, Amazon, Netflix, Apple, Broadcom, AMD. At the moment, the only two I think I would avoid, Microsoft with a negative 21 and Tesla with a negative 23. Little negativity. But yeah, it all points towards the bulls have got control. Now the index is here. Over here on the NQ futures, all right, we got the white arrows on the daily squeeze, which means, squeeze and the perfect score. Squeeze and a perfect score makes for an A plus setup. We've got that working on the daily squeeze, and we also have that working on the 4-hour squeeze. I happen to think at a pretty big level. Right up on the September swing high. If they fire that 4-hour squeeze, if they fire the daily squeeze, if they take out that September high, I'm thinking a pretty quick path back towards all-time highs. Jump over to, something a bit bigger like a weekly squeeze. And I think maybe room for potentially higher. Fire the 4-hour squeeze, fire the daily squeeze. They get going through those all-time highs here. We might get to a point where the weekly squeeze fires. A little bit shorter term, if they can take out the September swing high, and again, we're kind of knocking on that door this morning, I think a decent chance of pushing towards the previous all-time high this week. With that, you should have strength in your Nvidias, Apples, Amazons, etc. So there's your QQQ futures. S&P futures. Daily squeeze, white arrow. All right. Perfect score of 15. We haven't had that combo since early June. That all made for a pretty decent push. We're at an all-time high, which for the most part means there's no resistance. We have taken off the top. So daily squeeze cooking. Let me go check the 4. 4-hour already fired. And then nothing on the S&Ps across bigger time frames. So the focus for now shall be that daily squeeze. All right, then jumping over to the cash markets, QQQ, SPX. QQQ, what do you got? We don't have the white arrow yet, but we do have that weekly squeeze setting up. They got the white arrow on that one. All right, nice push. They got the white arrow on that one. Another nice move. They might want to go for the three-peat. And then looking like an hourly squeeze. Yeah, 1 hour squeeze with a white arrow. They should be gapping it right near, maybe a little above the highs back here this morning. If they can hold it, if they can stick the landing, right, I think you're looking for 500, maybe 503. And then SPX, anything on the spiders. No squeeze here. IWM has a really nice 2-day squeeze. All right, White Arrow, and then the Dow. The Dow had a really nice 4-hour. It already fired. That gets a little push going, and then really solid daily squeeze. Nothing bad I can say about it. Index is looking bullish, and then a few of the watch list names. If we go in order from strongest to weakest, I'm not going to look at Tesla. I'm not going to look at Microsoft. Google, AMD, AMAT. I'm usually thinking top 3, 4, or 5. Let's go see Nvidia. What is shaping up here for Nvidia? We've got the fresh daily buy signals. We have a weekly squeeze trying to shape up. 3-day squeeze trying to shape up. With a 2-day squeeze that just fired. I think in the short term, you anchor to that 130 level. Previous swing high, previous call wall. I think if they can hold it above that 130, maybe you're looking for a 15-minute squeeze, 30-minute, 1 hour, 2 hour. I think above that 130, try to find a spot to buy it. And if anything, you're playing for a push back into 140-ish. Bigger picture, what I like about Nvidia, they don't have earnings this week, next week. Meaning, this week, next week, I get a buy signal here on the weekly squeeze. I've actually got a little more time to play it. In comparison to a Netflix with earnings on Thursday. Now, earnings aside, I think she's a beauty. White arrow on the weekly squeeze. Let's see, 2-day squeeze. White arrow on the 2-day squeeze and a white arrow on the daily squeeze. Until that changes, I've got to think it's all good for a push higher. Knowing after earnings this week, that could all quickly change for the worse. So I don't think I'm going to jump in here before the announcement. But overall, I think a nice package of squeezes there. TSM. Now, they have earnings on the 17th as well. I like it. It grades out nicely. Really, I think, interesting weekly squeeze. I'm not going to jump into a weekly squeeze for a swing trade 3-4 days before earnings. Knowing that might mean the morning after earnings, we've got TSM gapping up to 215, and I missed the bus. I'm all right with that. Now, one that we do have here in my room is Broadcom. Perfect score of 15 off the daily. The white arrow 3-day squeeze fired on Friday. And then we're coiled up here in a weekly squeeze. I like the pattern. White arrow squeeze fires to the upside. White arrows, they go forward again. They go forward again. They're going forward a fourth time. For a fourth time. We have we got a 200 call fly for November expiration. If it's the week of expiration, we're pushing towards $200. We're looking at a 2, 3, maybe 400% return on risk. If we're into 200 this week, we're more so looking at a 45, maybe 50% return on risk. I like butterflies. I like debit spreads. The reality is you begin to lean more into the verticals. You're adding a few additional layers of complexity, we'll call it. If I just bought that 200 call, flat out, they push it into 200 this week. I'm going to get a bit more of a bang for my buck. Point being, for those of you that have that trade with me, if we go into 190 this week, and then we go into 200 the next day, the P&L is not going to change too much. Right? Being that the butterfly expires all the way in November, I'm going to work the exit order for 50%. If we can lock in the quick 50% profit, then I think maybe take that profit, then open up another trade, probably just a straight out calls. Then they blow this thing up into 210. No sweat off our back. So that is the game plan there. But overall, good looking weekly squeeze. And then who else we got? Nvidia, we did TSM, Broadcom, Netflix. Now, the one I'm waiting on is Apple. And what I'm waiting for are a few buy signals across these bigger squeezes. We got a weekly squeeze. I'm sorry, it's got a 3-day squeeze, a 2-day squeeze. All right, they had the white arrow here on the daily. Then they dropped the ball. And then I believe the 4-hour. 4-hour. 4-hour squeeze looking like it means business. Score of 15 and the white arrow. Doesn't mean they break it out. They had the same setup back here. They didn't do too much good with it. If they can get more buy signals, the daily squeeze gets a buy signal, you get one on the 2-day squeeze, then I think you're looking for that 235, 240. Bigger time frames remain neutral. I just think in the short term, couple things are setting up a little better. But when the move unfolds here, I definitely want to take action. But all right, y'all, that's what I got for you. Nvidia, Broadcom, TSM. If anything, it might be a good 1, 2, 3+ week window where maybe you shift a little bit more of your focus to the S&Ps and the QQQ. Avoid having to get long or short, before earnings. Avoid having to get caught in a trade going into earnings. Eliminate a little bit of that individual risk. Just trade the indexes. I think a great time to do that, really the best time to do that, is when the indexes themselves have these bigger time frame squeezes. So I'm looking at the NQ thinking, well, yeah, I could go buy some Apple, Nvidia, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or I could just buy the NQ. If all of those names explode, I think I got my bases covered. So that's going to be my thought process for the most part this week. Get through earnings and shift a little bit of the focus back to the individual names. But all right, y'all, any questions, anything you want to take a peek at? I've got you covered. NQ acting like they want to go for it. Yeah, 4-hour right at the high. It's very much what I would call the crowded level. You got to imagine anybody watching the NQ this morning. What are they watching? I think a pretty good chance they're all watching the September high. To get a crowded level, there's room for shenanigans. But I would not fight that squeeze. Yeah, BJR. I think that's the perfect word for Apple. Brewing. Shaping up, fixing to bust and move. Now, when I think as far as the QQQ, looking at the QQQ, it makes me want to lean bullish on Apple. 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks down the road, QQQ took that weekly squeeze, fired it to the upside. We're grooving into 530. I've got to think that's pretty good for all the major tech stocks. Market-wise, I got to lean bullish. What'll give me just a couple more warm and fuzzies would be another daily buy signal. I thought on that candle right there, I thought she was gonzo. And then I forget what the exact news was, but you got to love how that works out sometimes, huh? Let's push it back to the very tip of resistance. Close it there, and then the crappy news comes out. Hey, good morning, Paul. SMH. I think for the most part, it looks pretty sharp here. They got the daily buy signal. They've got a score of 15. The perfect report card. And I wouldn't look at this so much as an idea for this week, but maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks down the road, they're trying to shape up the weekly squeeze. Now compare it to the weekly squeeze you had back here. We're a little early in the compression. We're only 1, 2, 3 bars in. More importantly, momentum is still below zero. You've got a really good looking uptrend. You got good structure. Few things point towards, probabilities wise, better chance that squeeze fires to the upside. I don't think they can really seal the deal until they take that MACD, pull that back through zero. Right? They did that back here in November. That triggered a buy signal. That triggered the white arrow. And then a few weeks later, off goes the SMH. Great for Nvidia, Micron, AMD, all the above. A little more down the road, but the morning I wake up and they shift that momentum line, I'm looking for a breakout and a move into a brand new high. What can make that combo, I think, more powerful, they've also got this 3-day squeeze setting up. A little bit early. MACD below zero. They cross it like they did back here, The odds favor a nice push. 2-day squeeze just fired. So it's a combination of bigger time frames are building up energy. And then your daily chart for the first time in 2.5, maybe 3 months, finally shapes up in a bullish fashion. None of this means the SMH just goes up in a straight line. It just more so means that unlike back here, if you do catch a decent pullback, everything kind of points towards it should hold up nicely. Structure, momentum, trend, everything a bit more aligned to make that next flush a good buying opportunity. We're back here, that flush just makes for a flush. So until all that changes, I've got to like it in the short term here. KP, good morning, KP. XOM. Yeah, let me take a quick glance at energy. Let's see. All right, energy grades out as 10 out of 19 with a score of 63, so very respectable. And then if I look for XOM over here, if I can find it, there she blows. XOM with a 68 out of 75. All right, they both grade out really well. XOM. Fresh daily buy signals above the previous high. White arrow on the weekly squeeze. Now, to be fair, the last 2 times they've got that signal, they've kind of dropped the ball. Right? White arrow back here and kerplump. They go for round 2, kerplump. They're going for round 3, but they're above that previous level of resistance. I would think gives them a little bit of a better chance there. 3-day squeeze gets a white arrow. Right. Good momentum shift. Excuse me. And then your 2-day squeeze just fired. I like that a lot. If they can hold it above the daily 21 EMA on any flush, then I think they want to work on taking those bigger time frame squeezes higher. They're cranking out a couple of closes back under that 120, 119. I think in the short term, that's a little bit more give back than you'd want to see. But no, shaping up nicely there. Hey, good morning, Kurt. Good morning, Tony. All right, YouTube folks, good morning, you. Good morning, Terry. Good morning, Len, Andrew. As far as the, let's do a couple different sectors here. One that did grade out really, really bullishly over the weekend. Is bullishly a word? The financials. Now, food for thought. I think a lot of that is earnings. Now, a few of the big boys haven't had earnings yet. Let me see. BAC. They haven't announced yet. Goldman hasn't announced yet. So JP Morgan. Yeah, so JP Morgan gets a nice push going. Wells Fargo with a chunky gap up. You've got a situation where you look at XLF. You take XLF at face value. It looks really, really good. All right, momentum turn, brand new white arrow. I could only be bullish on that. So the market opens up here in 15 minutes, and I go buying a bunch of calls on XLF. And then, let me see, where's Goldman going to open today? All right, little gap higher, that can help. BAC tomorrow morning. Point being, even though I think we're at a point where trading the indexes, trading the sector ETF, I do think it makes a lot of sense. We can kind of work around the earnings announcements. To an extent, there's still the earnings risk. If I go load the boat on XLF calls and then, BAC's down 20% tomorrow morning, I'm probably going to take an L. Which I think makes buying the S&Ps of the QQQ, that much more attractive. BAC gaps down 20%. XLF gets hammered. It's not going to help the S&Ps, but if I'm long the SPY, maybe something else can offset that weakness. But I do like the daily squeeze there. What else we got? Goldman, perfect score, O'Reilly. You know what I want to show you? MSTR. Which stands for monster. 224 at the open. Jeesh. Yeah, she's gonzo. All right, well, I've missed the bus. But the weekly squeeze hasn't fired yet. They're taking out the previous highs. They're going for another 12 bucks higher this morning. I've got a target of about 235-ish on that weekly squeeze. Now, do I go buy it on the gap up this morning? Maybe not my favorite entry, but that's a pretty big time breakout. Bitcoin trying to push, NQ trying to creep above the highs here. Shaping up to be an interesting morning. No, Matthew, I didn't catch not a dollar on MSTR. I know JC did. Student versus the master. I think JC caught a chunk of that. Eddie, what's up, Eddie? What do I think of DKNG? Had the money line on the Bengals last night. So as of this morning, I'm a fan of DKNG. All right, let me look around here. On that daily chart, you're right up under a tricky level, the daily 200 SMA. Let me clean this up. It's actually a tricky little spot. Do I want to jump in and buy it right under that daily 200? I think I'd rather wait for a break. But then vice versa. Do I want to short it above a 21 EMA and a 50 SMA? I don't think I want to short it there either. So I'm going to mark up both of those levels, right? 200 SMA and then my 50 SMA. And then I want to take that daily squeeze. The thinking would be if they can break it above that 200, then they can work on a path that sees that daily squeeze firing to the upside. That can all kick off a push back into 42 and change. If they're breaking that daily 50, then I think the odds favor the squeeze break short. That can all kick off a move down into 35, 34. I want to be a little careful about buying those calls or buying those puts, inside that box. Another reason being you're in a box. And if I look at my scoring system here, I'm not getting too much context, right? Not too much edge. I'm getting a 4 out of 15. If we had a 14 out of 15 or a 15 out of 15, yeah, then maybe I'm a bit more inclined to find a spot to buy it inside that box. Everything pointing towards better chance they break it out to the upside. If I had a negative 14, negative 15, yeah, then maybe I'm looking for a short. Inside a range, very neutral score. For anything more than a day trade, I'm usually going to wait for the break. 1 or 2 closes back above the 200 SMA, I'm going to try to be a buyer. Couple of closes below that 50 SMA, I'm more inclined to be a short. Okay, 4-hour squeeze shaping up. That could get the move going at some point. In the short term, in that box, take your clarity from an hourly 30-minute 15. 1 hour time frame getting a 15. So that all works in the favor of the bulls. Then my 30-minute gets a negative 2. A lot of back and forth from the inside out. So that's my best piece of advice. And you got a weekly squeeze. I think the good news here could be, with all the squeezes setting up, when they can finally break that lane, break out of that range, then they could work on the path to what could be potentially a pretty big move. They eventually get that weekly squeeze going. I would just sit back in the short term, wait for a break out of that range, wait for a bit more clarity to call for a long or call for a short. That is that. But all right, folks, I'm going to let you go here. I got to jump on the mic with the folks in my room in about 5 minutes. As always, thank you for all the time. I appreciate you being here. I wish you all the best of luck this week. We're going to get to working on finalizing the indicator updates, so I shall keep you updated about that. And I'll catch you on Wednesday, same time, same channel. Thank you again. Kick some booty this week, and I'll talk to you soon. Adios, y'all.